Welcome back to another Trade Alt Technical Analysis update. My goodness, it's been a while. I've decided that I want to go back to posting public videos and public content. I've been on a bit of a hiatus, I guess you could say. I miss doing the videos, to be honest. I don't miss some of the things though, like editing, uploading, creating thumbnails. My goodness, the thumbnails. But I've been enjoying trading solo. Spent a ton of time in the pool with my kids this summer, and I really haven't done a ton of other things this year outside of that. To be honest, like I've been traveled quite a bit, and basically, like there hasn't been a ton going on in the market. I would say the moves have been relatively controlled. A lot of lower time frame stuff, sure, at times anyway, but for the most part, like, it hasn't been terribly exciting. Mostly been range bound, which I will be going over here shortly. Just wanted to do a couple of announcements first. So with bots, which I know a lot of people, I still get DMs about the trading bots and what I'm doing with them and what my plans are for them. And I haven't been using any trading bots. So I guess I'll just talk very briefly about this before I get back to the TA. But I haven't been using any bots since basically early this year, and it's really due to a few things. Exchange issues, basically a lack of trust for a lot of the exchanges. We had some exchanges blow up, and there's just a bit of uncertainty around that type of stuff. Binance US, one of them, that was having quite not quite the headlines that you'd want. I didn't really feel like keeping my money there, so I was pretty public about that. About removing my funds off of Binance US and finding somewhere else to be. But basically, it's mostly to do with the exchanges, but the conditions weren't very favorable anyway. Like, so for a lot of the strategies that I've done videos on, a lot of, especially like the long only type of strategies, it's not a favorable, at least at the time. And I still don't think it's really like that favorable at the moment, but definitely like early 2023, there wasn't really something that I was interested in doing at the time anyway, just because again, market was relatively slow, and just alts in general like haven't been as active. And I'm being kind of general about it, but I'm talking about like across the board. Obviously there's going to be some here and there that have crazy moves, crazy pops, still happens of course, but for the most part, like there just wasn't anything interesting enough for me to risk keeping my funds on exchanges that I really didn't want to be trading on at that time anyway, just to let the bots continue. So essentially, like, that's kind of what I have to say about that. 2022, I basically spent the entire year short, which ended up being very good. I ran a ton of short bots. 2022 was honestly a pretty good year, which is, again, 2023, you're kind of like, and I'll get into that. I'm not sure like how much I'm going to get into that as far as like expanding on like my high time frame thoughts, but like what I'll say is that 2023, it's obviously 2023 to me is more of like a transitioning market, right? So it's no longer down only, it's not up only. We're really, it's like a crab market, right? We're just sideways. We're like more range bound. Obviously the range, as I will go over, are pretty big, but for the most part, it's just nothing. It doesn't make me feel like I need to leap into action and have all this active bots running 24/7 again, that type of stuff. But that time, I'm sure it'll come. It'll come at some point, maybe soon, but still, that's just again, as far as bots go, that's kind of my thoughts about it. And I obviously want to acknowledge the fact that I've built a lot of this community excuse me, I've built a lot of this community from bots, and a lot of you are here because of trading bots. But like I've always also said that like my real passion, like what I'm excited about and what I actually do every day, is trade and do technical analysis and make decisions on that. And like that to me is what's exciting. The trading bots, they're fun to talk about, but like as far as trying to talk, discuss them at length all the time, like more frequently than I'd really like to, it's not that as engaging, I guess you could say. I don't think it's really that necessary. especially like those types of strategies that we discussed. They're definitely a lot more passive, and there's not, you know. Now, what I will say is, and some interesting topics for future videos is when to get into the market, when to exit, that type of stuff. Like that, I think that kind of content could be a bit more interesting versus just like strategy. Here's the settings. I'm using them. I like them. I don't like them. Whatever it is, you know, they're working for me. They're not working for me. I think like just focusing a bit more on like when the bots could be active versus them not, like maybe not a good time to be active, and kind of expanding more on that. Probably something I'll do in the future. But anyway, it's enough about bots. I mean, I'll probably have some dedicated bot content soon, and where I discuss this, maybe a live stream, something like that. But anyway, again, going on this long rant, got to get into technical analysis, but I also wanted to like update everybody on like where I've been, right? But anyway, trading, that's where I've always been. That's always been my focus, and that's kind of like what I want to continue to do. And I just found out recently that 3 commas actually works with Coinbase Advanced, which is cool. So like as far as an exchange, Coinbase, they're not at like the top of my list for the most favorite exchange that I'd ever want to work with. But from like, and this is strictly my opinion, okay? Has nothing to do with anything else, but strictly my opinion, that I think, you know, if I'm going to have my funds somewhere, Coinbase is one of those exchanges where I feel less afraid to do so. So again, that's if I had to put Coinbase versus a lot of the other exchanges, I would probably pick them in terms of, you know, where I would feel comfortable holding a, you know, the sizable sum of money, I guess you could say. Like that's probably one of my better options. But unfortunately, the downside of Coinbase still, in my opinion, is like the customer service and being able to speak to people. Like if something happened, you know, I've heard a lot of bad stories about that. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked again. So anyway, we're going to get into technical analysis. I'm going to probably keep the rest of this video rather brief, try to be the opposite of a lot of my other content, because I kind of tend to drag on, just like I am now. But anyway, that being said, let's get to the charts. All right, so I'm probably going to start off with ES. Actually, I will come back to Bitcoin. So ES, like again, and if you're in VIP, you're going to recognize a lot of these levels. Which, by the way, for people wondering what the hell VIP is, it's basically a subsection within the Discord. So like I am most active in Discord. I'm not very active in general Discord, which I apologize for. And honestly, if people tag me, I'll do my best to respond. I'm not in there like posting a ton of stuff or anything. But like if you have a question, if you want to reach out to me, like I'll do my best again to just make sure you tag me in there so I see it. Because I'm not always scrolling through all of the different rooms. And Telegram, you know, Telegram is one of those things like that I did, and I don't give it the love that it should, like that I should. So I'm not in Telegram very often at all, just because I don't have a reason to be in Telegram a lot of times. And I like everything else that I'm doing tends to be in Discord, the other Discord communities that I'm in. Which that's another thing. I've spent this entire year playing Wolf Game, by the way. So if anybody's familiar with the Wolf Game, or like maybe you recently found out I have a YouTube channel and you're from the Wolf Game community, welcome. Let me know in the comments, by the way. But yeah, I've spent a ton of time doing that. And so Discord's kind of the easiest way to get a hold of me. DMs are still kind of a bad idea though, because I don't always see them. So anyway, this is ES. And, you know, it's going to be kind of tough because I feel like I'm starting from zero with a lot of everybody. But if you're in VIP, you already know where I'm going with this. So basically what we've had, you kind of have the meme Head and Shoulders, right? Very obvious, very painful. Everybody sees this. But the funny part about this is it's actually breaking down, right? We're actually seeing the breakdown of the Head and Shoulders, which like here, if you zoom out a bit, try to keep it as clean as possible. We're really just range bound. Okay. That's my opinion. That's how I see the market. Nothing super crazy. But we did get very dangerously close to, you know, kind of testing all-time highs. I think we got up very close to the 886 fib retracement. So if I was to draw a bearish Fibonacci retracement from this high to low, we came very close to the 886, which NASDAQ actually hit 886 perfectly and rejected from there. So yeah, it's very close. 4,300. So this 4303 level, again, if you're in VIP, you know this level. I've been watching this forever. This is such a critical level, in my opinion, and we're below it. which isn't good. It's not really a good thing if you're bullish. And you have, obviously this trend line. I wasn't too married to this trend line, just kind of wanted to see what, again, it actually worked pretty well as support. I wasn't too concerned about it. But for the most part, the key level, this 4303, was way more important to me than this trend line, but now you're losing both. So that's kind of like a double whammy, right? Which, by the way, the 4303 level, why is that important? It's important to me because I basically look at this price action here. So if I was to draw my green colorful line there, around that, I was really looking at this as one big range that was forming. And what would 4303 be? Basically your range highs, right? So these are daily candles. You can zoom in and you see like how many times this level was resistance. Even on the way back up, where did you consolidate for a few days before like the pretty explosive move to the upside, right? 4303. It's no accident. Now, if we're zooming in a bit, so we're gonna get a little bit more granular. Basically, what do I think? I think the odds are that ES probably continues lower from here. Now, obviously, like this is gonna come with invalidations, right? Where would I be wrong on this? I would really need to see ES reclaim 4380. So basically, you see this red zone, okay? So this red SR zone that I have here. Basically, you have support, 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 and tried to, right? Held here for a couple of days and then failed. And then it even gave you, zoom in, it gave you a very perfect back test of this 4372 level, which, by the way, is your value area high of this entire range. So again, when zooming out, looking at this as a range, the value area high of this range, we just rejected. So we lost this support, which obviously broke the neckline of the very obvious head and shoulders, which I'm not a big pattern trader. I don't love them, but like this, the confluence is here for me. It's just another factor of like what makes this level important. Basically, we're losing support. We came up and actually back tested it, rejected, and now we have new lows, right? So this is very bearish. I can point out right here. So this is ES, same chart, just using Ichimoku. And this is using standard settings, by the way. When you see most of my videos, majority of my content I talk about is crypto related. Most of the crypto content that I do use different settings. For traditional markets, majority of the time I use standard settings. So basically, literally what's built into TradingView. I use because it's really tailored for the traditional market. All I need to say is the only reason I'm showing this to you is because this looks terrible. So this is very clearly this is very clear bearish trend at the moment. That's all I'm trying to say. Cloud flipped from bullish, right? Nice uptrend. Cloud flip bearish. You have your bearish TK cross. Price is clearly below cloud. The slope, the angulation of your Tenkan, especially very bearish. And again, like this doesn't take a lot to flip around. And kind of like if you look at where your Kijun is sitting, this will come down over time, but where it's sitting right now, it's kind of around 4,400, right? Slightly above 4,400. I would just go for me, what I would say is the 4380. So going back to this chart, right? What would need to happen for me to kind of flip my, like, where am I going to be wrong on us going any lower? It's going to, for now, this will change over time. Especially if we continue to move sideways to lower over time. It's back above 4380. So getting back above this red box. So that would be a really good start for bulls. If that were to happen, then you could probably class this as, again, maybe a little deviation. Then I would think that we'd push pretty heavily back to the upside, at least, to 4450, something like that. But for now, this is kind of the line and stand for me. We get back above here, get a nice close above here, get acceptance back above basically this red box, then yeah, that would kind of signal, say, hey, really we're probably coming and put in a nice low. And it wouldn't surprise me to see us make kind of like a year-end push, that type of thing. For now though, as long as we're below, especially being below 4303, not good. I do think so. Like the target, by the way, for this meme head and shoulders that everybody's looking at is really putting you down around the golden pocket, which for those of you who follow me, you know how much I love Fibonacci. The thing that I like about this, and the reason why I think that this actually is a really solid target, there's a ton of confluence down here. This is like outstanding confluence. So you have the overall range, right? So you have this whole range that's being built. The midpoint of that comes in at 41.55. And also the point of control of the entire range, which is always going to be a massive level, that's sitting just slightly below the midpoint of the range. So like you have, and by the way, this green squiggly line is your anchored VWAP from your 3,500 low, so from the range low. There's a lot of confluence here. So like, is this some massive macro level that like we come down, it's gonna be rock solid? Maybe. But like, I wouldn't be shocked at all if ES made its way to this level and saw a pretty nice bounce off here. So that's kind of like how I would treat this. And be looking for, you know, potential, I wouldn't necessarily say like reversal, but like as far as like what's a pretty good support, and to be looking for probably a relief bounce somewhere around here. That's kind of my guess. So as far as ES goes, again, not great, doesn't look great. Rates, which I will probably touch on that just very briefly, but if rates continue to kind of go the way that they're going, I think equities are going to have a really hard time. They're going to have a hard time. I'll just leave it at that. So, you know, the market ebbs and flows. Things don't always move in a linear fashion, or in a parabolic fashion. And, you know, you're going to have retracements. You're going to have bounces even in times that, like, you know, again, and don't make no mistake, like this is not like an awful looking chart. I definitely can show you a lot worse charts than this. This is not awful, but at this point, again, I'm kind of looking for, you know, again, as long as we're below 43.03, I'm definitely looking for us to come down to this. And it's, I mean, like 43.80, but definitely 43. This is very weak if we're below this. That's just my opinion. So yeah, that's my thoughts on ES. And like ES and Bitcoin, you know, I haven't been paying massive attention to correlation between the two because it used to be really tight at certain points, and at certain points really not correlated at all. And I feel like this is one of those times where it's just not really that correlated, so I don't pay too much attention to like what, you know, if I'm trading Bitcoin, I mostly care about like what the Bitcoin chart is doing. I'm not trying to like compare what's ES looking like, but you know, there'll be a time in the future again where that's, you know, maybe you're, you know, because there was quite a long period where you could literally look at ES, and a lot of times they give you a little bit of heads up on like where BTC was headed for like lower time frame trades. So anyway, let me take a sip of water. All right. So one thing I'm going to look at really briefly is the 10-year, which, my goodness, I don't talk about bonds very often. But what I like, the reason why I'm bringing this up, there's actually like an interesting trade setup here for myself that I'm looking at, which is, you know, roughly going to be this week. I'll tell you from this close, like from today, that's probably not going to happen, but it's still early enough in the week to where I could see a potential trade lining up for myself. The bottom line is, here's your 10-year. And as you can see, it's literally parabolic. It is literally parabolic. And not only that, but this recent break, right? So we had this high back here in October, came up to 4 1/3 basically, and you had this pullback, reaccumulation, sideways price action, however you want to say it. Bottom line is, it's basically like a bit of a reset, and now since this level was broke, right, the parabolic general trend not only continues, but you're getting even more steep here. Like, this is a very, very aggressive move. Couple of things when it comes to rates, people, like, which I'm watching a lot of people discuss rates because it's a very hot topic, obviously, with what's happening on the chart right now. Be very careful stepping in front of this. People call tops, so like, people are very quick to call tops. And you know, it's kind of one of those things you just keep saying it until you're right. Eventually, then maybe people will remember you for that. The bottom line is like this is very aggressive. As long as this is the case, and if this continues to the upside, again, I don't see, like, I'm not saying stocks are going to go to zero. I'm just saying that it's going to be it's going to have a much harder time having, you know, sustained moves to the upside is what I'll say. Anyway, just wanted to point this out. 10-year, very, very, very aggressive to the upside. Taking out 4 3/4. Kind of what I was looking for this week is I would like to see, you know, I actually don't mind this push up too much. What I would like to see is a bit of weakness somewhere around here, at least close back under 4 3/4. And that to me, you can kind of see like what I think. Now, again, this is kind of like, you look at the parabolic move. This is like a perfect parabola, right? This would obviously require it to be broken unless it was a very swift move down, which I don't really necessarily expect that. All I'm saying is if we do come back under 4 3/4, my trade idea that I'm kind of looking at is to long TLT, which here's TLT. So again, if this comes back under 4 3/4 this week and looks like it's going to close under 4 3/4, that like that's I'd be a bit interested in longing TLT and looking for this pullback. Now, does it come all the way down here? You know, again, I don't know. I'd have to take it day by day. I'd probably, you know, be very aware of kind of where the parabola is and kind of like how price is progressing, obviously, or how, you know, how the 10 years progressing. But if you go to TLT, you see, right, this is like the inverse parabola. This is absolutely disgusting. So like you actually have to go to a weekly chart to see, like, you haven't been at these levels in quite a long time, which, like, again, what's happening right now, it's, you know, it's not super surprising. But basically what again, going back to the 10-year, is if I can get this to kind of come back under and mark kind of like a local top. Again, I'm not trying to say it's the top at all. I'm absolutely not saying that. What I'm saying is a short-term trade is if there is a little bit of a pullback here, back, you know, under 4 3/4, then I would probably look for a bounce on TLT. That's all I'm saying. So basically, like, if that does happen, I'd come to TLT. I want to see where the current low is for the week. So you can use a week, it's fine. We'll go a day, it doesn't matter. It's wherever that low is going to be. And that's where my invalidation will be on my long for TLT. And I'd probably be targeting, again, I'd be wanting to target this key level. Basically, this, to me, 95 is way more of an important level. But you know, it could be a nice short-term trading, and this is more of like, you know, I don't expect to be in this trade for very long, because, you know, from like now again, this is kind of switching gears a little bit from a macro perspective, you know, talking like quarters, like months and quarters and potentially years down the road. I do think that there's a fairly decent chance that you're gonna, like, that rates could go a lot higher from here. I do think it's possible. So anyway, for this particular trade, though, it's more lower time frame. Don't expect to be in this one for very long, if I'm even given the chance, right? Like if the 10-year just continues to rip up, then I don't have anything. I'm not, you know. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out. This is kind of like what I would be looking for. Obviously, like, it's not going to follow this green line perfectly or anything like that. But like it's just an idea. So like if that was to happen, basically any kind of weakness here, I'd be looking to long TLT, and it'd be probably, again, like maybe a week or two. Who knows? Who knows how long? I can't really talk about that. But that's kind of the thought process there. So we're gonna move on to we covered ES, covered the 10-year, which for the 10-year is really interesting right now. You'll probably see me talk a lot more about that every once in a while anyway. But let's move to BTC. So where do I start? This is kind of one which I cleared my chart for the most part. That's one thing that I want to try to do a better job. I want to try to have cleaner charts. Although when I'm trading, like when I'm scalping, like I mean, you'll see, like, my chart looks absolutely wild. But for BTC, I'm going to try to keep it a bit more higher time frame for today. So I'm going to go to my folders here and kind of turn on some levels so I can talk about them. First of all, you know, basically the way that I'm seeing things at the moment is that we are in a range. So we're in a very high time frame. I mean, I even labeled it macro range. You can see it there. But I really think that, again, we're just in a, I mean, we've been in a range, in my opinion, since early mid 22. And I don't, there's like, sure, I've heard a lot of people that are like looking for substantially higher prices than where we're at today. Coming, like, they're expecting a year-end rally essentially. Like, I'm not saying that I don't. I just see things that are a bit more conflicting that would make me less expecting that to happen, I guess you could say. Am I against it? Hell no. If we got a nice rally, great. I'd want to obviously be a part of that. But I'm really hesitant to call out and be like super assertive that that's going to happen. Because again, for me, if you know me, especially if you're a VIP, you know that I trade level to level. I'm, sorry, my wife's texting me. But I'm a level to level trader. I always have been, I always will be. I don't really care. Like, I'm more focused about where we're at and trying to trade, like really hone down my levels that I'm looking at versus worrying about, like, I don't care, try to get clicks and say we're going to 50,000 and be wrong and not, hopefully people forget. No. What I'll say is that, again, we're in a range. You can see a very clearly defined range, right? Basically, like, you have your high, your low. On this test of the high, by the way, when we made this high back in July, now this wick is a bit controversial, you could say, maybe a little bit, because it didn't happen on every exchange. And like, I happen to trade off of this Bybit chart, so BTC USD. I've had for forever, ever since they made us move from BitMEX. Anyway, I won't get too much into that. But anyway, if you look at the wick on the Bybit chart, which is really interesting because this didn't happen on pretty much every other exchange. There were all varying degrees of where price got down to on this kind of like meltdown that we had here. But very clearly, it was off of the macro range EQ, literally the midpoint of your high and your low. So that was really interesting. And now, where are we finding current resistance? Macro value area high. So if you'll notice, again, if you're familiar with my old, my analysis when we were trading in 2021 and 22, and we were kind of back here in this range, it's the same thing. We're just trading, albeit like a different range, right? We had a very clear definitive range up here. Those levels that we were trading, it's the same thing here. We just have another range, that's my opinion. But the levels, to me, they work really well. And again, these are definitely the levels that I'll be trading off of. What I'll say is that I do think, I can overlap some other stuff on here to kind of give you a bit of confluence on why I'm going to say what I'm going to say. Bottom line is that, like, when you get to a range, like when you're thinking that you're trading a range, it's very easy for most people to get very bullish at the high and very bearish at the low, right? Very normal for that behavior. No matter what range you're trading, you could be trading in a range that's forming on like an hourly chart, and maybe it's a day or two, 3-day range, something like that. It's the same principle, right? Like, people get very bullish at the highs, thinking you're going to break out, very bearish at the lows, thinking you're going to break down. And what happens? Price just stays in the damn range and chops people up. This is no different. It's just a very high time frame. People got really, really super bullish above 30K. Oh my God, we're going $1 million. And then, we obviously had a pretty big nuke. It's kind of the same thing. We're moving back up again. We're moving back up, kind of like making our way towards the upper end of the range, and you can feel the excitement building, right? You can feel the people that are calling for massively higher prices. Same thing if we were to be down here. I'll guarantee you that you start to get to 1820, people would be really bearish. Like, people, you know what I mean? It'd be kind of the complete opposite, in my opinion. Because that's literally human behavior. It always happens for the most part. So anyway, where we are at the moment, not very exciting for me. If I had to establish a new position today, I wouldn't be like, and again, I'm talking about like higher time frame trading, okay? There's a lot of setups, sure, that you could have on lower time frames. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like price today. If I have to make a decision for a position, that I wanted to hold for a while. Like, is this a good place for me to do business? My answer would be no, and that's my opinion. Not really that interested. Because why? Because you're kind of in the midpoint between the high that we just made and the low that we just made, right? You're kind of right in the middle of that. And for me, it's not like a terribly exciting place to try to establish a brand new position, essentially. Now, again, lower time frames, much different. I can go on a hourly chart, 15-minute, 5-minute. There's going to be lower time frame setups, absolutely. A lot of scalps to be had, absolutely. But from this time frame, this perspective, I'm not that interested here. So to overlap, remember this was our old macro range. So maybe I'll turn this off just for a second. This was our old macro range from, again, 2021, 2022 range, essentially. This huge range. If you zoom in, some of these levels are still very much apparent and very important to what's happening even today. That's my opinion. You can see this macro range low coming in, basically rejected off of that just the other day. But like, this is a huge level on high time frames. Being above it, I'm a bit more on the like cautiously bullish side, I guess you could say. If looking for higher prices, just because it's such a significant level historically. So again, going back to this range, you start to trade above here, like, you have to be cautiously bullish. And you notice I say cautiously bullish because obviously we were trading above it before a couple of times, and both times we broke down, right? But you can see, even on the support test, when we broke up on this time, where did we find support? It was this level. And then look at where, like, you literally zoom in, and this yellow box is a little bit in the way. But again, no close below, no close, no close. You see all these wicks trying to defend this level. One final kind of pump, SFP this high, by the way, and then broke down. Look, daily close. So you remember when we were, I believe we were in Discord, to go back, but anyway, this is not, this was very much calling this out. This candle close here, close below, clear weakness versus the other times that price tried to sustain itself above this level, and look what happened immediately after. Just a massive nuke to the downside. All right, now again, this wick this wick down to like sub 24k didn't happen across the board. There's going to be different levels for every exchange pretty much, but basically a lot of people got wiped out. So where did this level come from? Here. That's why this level to me is still important. We came up to test it, very close, and you can see like this, any attempts that we're really getting back up here, initial rejection, right? That doesn't mean that we can't come back up here again and try to test it, but I'm just saying that this level is definitely a big level going forward. Your macro value area low, 29, basically 29,500. I think that's a pretty big level as well. Start to get above 29.5. Short story is, I think that we're probably pushing for this high. I wouldn't be shocked if we took this high out. So let's see, I want to put this back on. Yeah, basically getting above 29.5. I think it's very likely that we're at least going to come run this high. So I'll kind of give you the level to level of kind of what I would be looking at. Above 29,500, I think the odds are substantially increased. I would be looking to come take this high out at basically 32k. If assuming this doesn't end in a swing failure pattern, which I would love, basically coming up here and doing something like this, right, which would be like an incredible short position. I would love to see that personally. But like, if you're bullish, this is not exactly what you'd want to see, because this would either, kind of think of it as like a SFP above this high. You could even spend a little bit of time up here, right? Maybe chop around and then come back in. You have a deviation above range high. That also, I would look to short the hell out of that. Stop loss above whatever high that is. I'm not saying that. I honestly don't think that that's as likely, but I would definitely take that trade myself. Not financial advice, of course. I'm just telling you that like that. I would love to see that for a potential trade setup. But I think it's a little bit more likely. And again, this kind of leads to like, if we saw this kind of price action happen, sometime in the next couple of weeks or something like that, we're above 29,500. I do think that there's, then you kind of like can give in a little bit to the year-end rally type of scenario. Especially again, if you break this high at your macro range high, you break and actually hold that level, then yeah, like my next level is really about 36K, which is the golden pocket from this high to low. That's where this golden pocket comes in, which again, Fibonacci, you know how much I love that. But really it's 37,700. You can see I have it marked as a key level still, which is basically looking around. It's basically around where this broke down from. And then you see kind of this like really strong move to the downside. I think that you probably find quite a bit of resistance around this level. Basically this couple $1,000 window here, I think like I would, again, if I'm long here, I'm looking to probably take some off the table. Just because I think that this could be a pretty nice candidate for some pushback above 37.7 though, and things then to me, again, going back to range trading, right, kind of have like this range that we were trading in here. If you get back above 37.7, it's off to the races, and you're probably going to see, again, I would not be shocked to see these levels get tested up here. I think it'd be pretty intense. But as long as we're below 31,869, I don't even care. I'm not even looking at that because it's not relevant. But if that were to happen, which it's Bitcoin, a lot of things can happen in a very short amount of time, as we all know and love. Yeah, I would be like, especially if we got a really strong move up above 29,500, the dominoes would start to fall into place for that, as far as this, like us actually looking to try to not only test this high, but potentially break out. Now what I'll say, like if we break out from this level, you don't really want to see price come back. That's kind of like what I would say. Like as long as we would be above this range high, I would be looking for continuation. But you really like a range of this magnitude, there would really not be much of a reason why you'd want to see price come down here for any length of time. Because if it did, I would argue that like you're probably coming again. If you get acceptance back inside of this range, odds are that you're probably going to be looking for pretty good pullback within this range. So let me close that just to kind of clear those levels up. So anyway, that's to the upside, right? And kind of like what I would be looking for there. To the downside, interesting enough, you had this beautiful range here. So basically from June of 2022 all the way up until March 2023. It's almost a year-long range that we spent down here, developed a lot of really great SR levels that still hold up really well today. Specifically the range high here, so I'll actually pull that up. It's this. So let me turn this off just for a second. So this is basically the old range, and kind of the way that like I look at this is that this is a range. So you have like two sub ranges. There's actually a lot more than that, but you have like two major sub ranges within the overall macro range. Does that make sense? So like you have the overall macro range, which I'll turn back on, right, that you can see here. But for me, there's two very distinct sub ranges that are both huge ranges in itself, but that are kind of like interacting with each other. And to me, both those levels, like both of these ranges, are very, very important. Bottom line is, I went over kind of like the bullish scenario, what I'd want to see to get like excitedly bullish, I guess you could say. The flip side of that, on a high time frame perspective, because again, that's what this analysis is about. It's about high time frame, is back below this range high, which you can see was like outstanding, right? Not only was it your wick low support here from that dump, before you got a really nice push to the upside, and then obviously we nuked and made our current macro lows, but this range high level here at 25,222 is outstanding. I mean, look at this from an SR perspective, right? And what I mean by SR, support resistance. You have your initial support here, right? You get the nuke through the level. Where does price reject that? There, right, literally right there. Perfect SR flip. And then we made new lows. What happens? Look, come right back to this exact level. Can't get above, nukes again to where, by the way, the midpoint. the EQ of the range and the point of control. But like more importantly, again, the EQ of the range literally dumps right back to equilibrium, right? The 50% mark of your low and high before giving you, you know, this massive move to the upside. And now, so like factoring in this price action, and to me, again, this key level, this 25,222 level, when you're above that, you have this beautiful range, very symmetrical range too, by the way, developing. And so to the downside, what level do I not want to see us below if I'm going to remain somewhat hopeful that there's upside to come? It's this level. I think that if we lose this level again, especially on like a closing basis, now we like barely did here, but then had a really strong reversal the next day before moving higher. Anything below this range high again, I think it's pretty good odds that we're going to see lower. And by lower, I would definitely like, I think that this 23 level, there's actually pretty good confluence around here. I think it's sitting here. Yes, there's also a monthly that's sitting right there that's untapped. But like this, so there's a bit of confluence around here for sure. To be looking for kind of like this wick to get filled, which again, this wick didn't happen on a lot of other exchanges, but I'm saying like this wick on this particular chart, I could see that getting filled if we lose this range high. And then below that, probably a pit stop around 22K. I mean, and then you know, it starts to get, you lose that, then it starts to get ugly, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But again, to me, to wrap everything up nice and neat, before I move on to the next one, either I'm going to move on to the next one or wrap it up for this video. It's so again, high time frame perspective above 29,500. I am looking for continuation to the upside, at least to range high. So which I can actually just put that back on really fast. Above 29,500, which there's a lot of really nice confluence. Like there's a lot of things on here too that I want to show because it's going to make the chart look really ugly. But again, just because there's going to be a lot more lines that I'd really want to have on my chart at the moment. But to me, there's a lot of resistance, specifically above 29, like 29 to 29.5, there is a lot of resistance there. So if we break through that and have a nice push above 29,500, to me, that's pretty impressive, and be looking for that continuation. Below this range high, 25,222, be looking for lower, essentially. And, you know, if I had to coin flip, if I had to pick one at the moment, I still favor the bulls. Like they're still, you know, at least here locally, which I don't want to get like, I don't want to dive in too much because I could easily add another 20 minutes of like looking at lower time frame price action. But for now, I still think that the bulls have a chance, and that like I'm not getting overly bearish here, although this was a pretty nasty rejection. So kind of like want to just wait and see how the next couple of days go, how the week ends up. But overall, like the bulls still have a chance for sure. All right, so let me go through my charts and see if I want to look at anything else. I think I'm probably going to wrap it up there. But like I said, I kept the video kind of higher level, looking at things from a higher time frame perspective. In the future, you know, depending on the frequency of the videos that I do, which if you're in VIP, you're probably wondering what the hell just happened, because I don't do a lot of macro analysis like on live streams. I mean, because you can talk forever and doing that, but most of my analysis that I do is all lower time frame stuff. So like everybody's here wondering what the hell's going on. A lot of what I do is definitely more lower time frame focused. So today was a little bit more refreshing for me, to be honest. But like, I think like for me, why I like to do this type of analysis, like the higher time frame stuff, is for one reason: it helps me frame my trades. So like if you look at kind of like what areas that I'm looking at, it doesn't mean that it's right, it doesn't mean that it's perfect by any stretch, but I just want to give you an idea kind of like what I'm looking at. And you can kind of see like if I'm trading on lower time frames, where am I likely, like if price starts going against me, it's really important for me to know where I'm likely wrong. That's the main point that I want to talk about here. So like I said in the very beginning of my Bitcoin analysis, I don't love establishing a new position right here if I'm looking to get into some type of swing trade. And like literally right where we're at right now, I'm not like, to me, it's kind of, again, I favor the bulls a bit more, but it's still kind of more of a coin flip up or down. That's my opinion. But like if I wait till price comes closer to one of my invalidations or one of my kind of like changing levels, right? Like I discussed, 29.5 and 25.222. The closer I get to one of those levels, the easier it is for me to want to get into a trade because my invalidation will be a lot closer. If you look at where we are right now, we're basically in between those two invalidations on where I would be looking for bearish price action or bullish price action, right? So for me, I don't like to establish new positions knowing that. If I'm sitting literally dead center in between those two kind of like opinions that I have, I'd rather wait until I get closer to one or the other to look for those potential swing trade type ideas. Now again, it's kind of this, it's the same thing, same trading style for me. If this was a 5-minute chart and I'm scalping, it'd be the same thing. I wouldn't want to take a position here. That's just my opinion. Like I would still rather wait for a better trade setup. Or arguably like this, obviously this is hindsight now, but like you can see like as we come up into resistance, okay, you're pushing resistance and you haven't been at that level for a while, that makes more sense to want to look for a short here, right? If this had been the opposite and this didn't happen and instead we pulled back to like where support is, right? So maybe you pull back to like low 26s, for example, or even slightly lower, like 25.7, 25.8, something like that. I would be more prone to want to look for longs because I'm closer to where I'm wrong. So hopefully that makes sense. So anyway, I'm sorry if I didn't give like a definitive up or down here, but I just think it's important to phrase and like to explain why that is. So what is this? BCH? Oh my goodness, Bitcoin Cash. I could get into that right now. I'm not going to because it's going to take a while. Maybe I'll do a separate video for that just in case, because it is like it's coming to an area of interest. But I don't want to prolong the video any longer than it already is. So anyway, thank you so much for taking the time to watch the video. And obviously, like if there are certain topics that you want me to cover, regardless of what it is, put it in the comments, let me know, and I'll be happy to take a look. So with that being said, trade safe out there. We'll see you on the next one.